Hey, music lovers, welcome. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. I'm going to talk about The Who in this one. I recently got the opportunity to see them live. They came through Northern Virginia up in Bristow on their Moving On 2019 US tour. And I'm going to talk about the set list, talk about the orchestra, what you can expect, and what The Who are up to these days and what you can expect coming up in the near future. And also, I've got a playlist for this video, a companion playlist. I'll put a link up to it here. I've got rehearsal footage, live footage from this tour, from this show actually, so be sure to check it out down below. And this whole thing came about when Roger Daltrey had this idea for kind of, going out with The Who with an orchestra. Now, Daltrey went out last year with an orchestra as a solo act, and he did Tommy. And as a matter of fact, that just came out on CD. And he used the same conductor as The Who is using now. The guy's name is Keith Levinson. Roger wanted to go out with an orchestra. Pete wasn't too keen on it. What Pete wanted was a new Who album. He had written about a dozen plus songs last year with Roger in mind, wanted to make a Who album. And so they kind of made this awkward compromise, as they call it. Pete agreed to go out with the orchestra, and Daltrey agreed to sing these songs that Pete has written. Pete sent him a bunch of demos. According to Roger Daltrey, initially he, felt like this would have been a really good Pete Townsend solo album, but Pete really wanted him to sing on it. And from what I understand, Roger Daltrey right now is talking about this being the best Who album since Quadrophenia. Like, he really feels like this material is strong and that Pete Townsend still has it. So we'll see. This new album has not been scheduled yet. There's no title. However, they have talked about playing some brand new songs on this tour when it comes back to the States in the fall. Now, there was some talk about The Who playing at Woodstock 50 this year. Woodstock is celebrating its 50th anniversary, and they're actually having some shows on the Bethel Woods site, which is the original site of Woodstock. But there's also this other show that's supposed to be taking place, organized by Michael Lang, who was the original organizer of the '69 Woodstock. The problem is the whole Woodstock show that he had planned for Watkins Glen up in New York got derailed. The financial backing fell apart, and the site pulled its license, so it's not going to be at Watkins Glen. And it's hard to say what's going to happen with Woodstock 50 with Michael Lang. A lot of bands are lined up for this show. It's supposed to take place in the middle of August, but so far there's no ticket sales, there's no venue, and it looks like Woodstock 50 with Michael Lang is in a lot of trouble, and I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't even happen. I don't know how you can pull that kind of event together. It's only a couple of months away, and the tickets haven't gone on sale. There's no permits. But anyway, when it comes to The Who and Woodstock 50, Daltrey didn't want to do it because he felt like, singing outdoors in the middle of the summer in August, not good for his voice. He wanted nothing to do with any kind of Woodstock show. So no Who at Woodstock this year. And so, as I mentioned, The Who are going out with an orchestra, and it's being led by Keith Levinson, who worked with Daltrey last summer, as I had mentioned. And David Campbell is the one that did the orchestrations, actually wrote the score for this tour. David Campbell is the father of Beck, who you may remember came up in the 90s and just won a Grammy, actually, last year. And so for this tour, there's an orchestra, but they're using local orchestra. So they don't have a traveling orchestra with them. And what happens is basically these orchestras, they're top notch. They meet with Keith Levinson for about 2.5 hours the day of the show. Now, they may have already received some sheet music, but from this interview that I saw with Keith, he talked about how most of them don't even look at it until practically the day of the show. They meet for a couple of hours. They run through the set, and then they meet with the band for sound check for about a half hour. And that's all that these orchestras get. And so they're very, very talented, able to just kind of settle into this stuff quickly. And I'll talk about, how the orchestra did throughout the show. And so for this tour, they've got a 48-piece orchestra, and then there's also a 5-piece band. So aside from Townsend and Daltrey, we've also got Zach Starkey on drums, Ringo Starr's son. He's been playing with them for 20 plus years. Great, great drummer. Nice energy that he brings to the Who. And we've got Simon Townsend, who is Pete Townsend's younger brother. He is on guitar. And Simon has a lot of history with the Who. You know, he's been playing with them on and off since the mid-90s. And he also was on the album Tommy back in the 60s. He was just about 9 years old, and he had a little part on one of those tracks. And he also appeared in the film, the Tommy film that came out later. And also we've got Lauren Gold on keyboards, and we've got John Button on bass. And, you know, the way that this whole thing works is the band plays with the orchestra for about the first hour and a half or so. And then we're down to the 5-piece, and then they're supplemented by a couple of string players for some more intimate songs. Even one of them is just, actually a couple of them are just Pete and Roger. And then the whole orchestra comes back with the band to finish out the show. Now, this tour has a number of opening acts, and I was looking through the list, and I didn't recognize hardly any of them. The only one that I really knew was Peter Wolf, formerly of the Jay Giles Band. And I was looking forward to seeing Peter because he was opening up for the Who at this particular show. And I'd never seen Jay Giles Band. So, you know, we're out in the parking lot walking to the gate, and I can hear Peter Wolf coming on. And I was like, oh, let's get to let's get to the seats. I want to see him. So we're walking to the gate, going through the security to look through the bags and all this stuff. And, you know, they're taking forever, looking through bags. Even one guy that's looking through the bags has got this hat on, looking like Sherlock fucking Holmes, going through bags. Meanwhile, the set is going on and on. And by the time we got out of the gate and we're approaching our seats, Peter Wolf was walking off the stage. I never even got to see him, so I can't tell you about Peter's set. I heard it. I could hear bits and pieces of it. He sounded good, but never got a chance to see him. If you saw Peter Wolf on this tour, let me know what you thought. Drop it down below. All right, so let's talk about the show. Let's talk about the set list here. I like how they arranged it. They basically bookended the set list with their 2 rock operas. They kick things off with Tommy. They do like the first half hour of the show practically is Tommy. The first 5 songs, and then they throw a couple of others in, and then they do a smattering of like classic hits that they had along with some deeper cuts, and then they close out the show with Quadrophenia, a selection of songs from that. And you know, along the way we've got the full orchestra. We have the band pared down to as little as just Roger and Pete, and then we bring the full orchestra back again. So nice color and shade and variation throughout the show. And they kick things off with Tommy, like I said, the overture. And this song was meant for an orchestra. It sounds really, really good. The overture is just great instrumental. And, you know, I listened to the overture, and it reminds me of the overture from 2112 by Rush. I mean, I know that they're very, very different, but I could definitely hear Alex Lifeson as a younger dude listening to The Who, hearing Tommy, hearing overture, hearing Pete Townsend, and how much of an influence did that have over the overture for 2112? I mean, there are some similarities, especially the use of the acoustic guitar to kind of add some extra power. And so really love the whole way the show started. Roger was looking good. Now Pete, he came out and he looked a little unsure of things, like he wasn't quite ready. I don't know. Even my friend that I was with, he was a little bit concerned because he saw his brother Simon taking more of the leads. And when I went back and looked at the footage, Pete just looked a little bit rusty, like something was a little bit off. And then, like I said, they continued with, you know, like It's a Boy, 1921, Amazing Journey, and Sparks. Really, really great. Then we get to Pinball Wizard, and at this point, you know, Roger Daltrey is throwing the microphone around like he did in the old days. And when we get to We're Not Gonna Take It, which closes out the Tommy portion of the show, Pete comes alive. You know, we're starting to see him getting his mojo back. And then after the Tommy section, we go into, like I said, this part of the show where they have a lot of classic hits and deep cuts, and they kick that off with Who Are You? with the full orchestra and Pete picking on the guitar. Really, really great guitar work. And of course, we get to the windmills. They're back again. And there's more and more windmills from Pete. And great climactic end to Who Are You? And then they do Eminence Front, which sounded really good. Pete on lead vocals, giving Roger a break. And the orchestra really shined on this song, I thought. I thought that they added some nice accents and they filled it in a way that I never really would have thought about with Eminence Front. Don't really associate that with an orchestra. After that, they pull out a deep cut from Who by Numbers called Imagine a Man. That was really cool. And then they do Join Together. And so at this point, we're about an hour and a half into the show. The orchestra takes a break, and now we're down to just a five-piece band. And it was really great to see them as a five-piece because we got to feel more of their power. They dug into the 60s for a couple of songs. They went and did Substitute, which is one of my favorites from that era. And, Roger was sounding good. That's one of the things about this show that kind of surprised me because I went in thinking that maybe Roger would be a bit shaky and that Pete would have been sharp. And it started off with Pete a bit rusty and Roger was sharp. And Roger stayed sharp throughout the whole show. I mean, he was really, really great. I'm not saying that he sounds as good as he did back in the day, but he still has it. And he sounded really good on Substitute. Pete Townsend, again with the windmills, looking great. This was a good rockin' version of Substitute. The band came alive here. And then they went into The Seeker, which is another one of my favorites from the 60s. Great, great tune there. So then after this, everybody leaves the stage. It's just Roger and Pete, and they do Won't Get Fooled Again as an acoustic piece. And when I first saw this on paper, I thought, holy shit, I want to see this song live, and I don't want to see it acoustic. What the hell's going on here? But I will admit, they did a really good job with it, considering it was an acoustic. It still had intensity. It still had heart. And I thought that they had a nice touch. Roger involved the audience. And although I would have loved to have seen it in its full glory, I thought that it still had a good amount of power. And it still was delivered very, very well. Let me know what you think about it. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on the acoustic version of Won't Get Fooled Again. After this, they go into Behind Blue Eyes, which is one of my all-time favorite Who songs from Who's Next. And Pete and Roger are accompanied by Katie Jacoby and also Audrey Snyder. Katie is the concertmaster for The Who. She actually travels with the band, and she is their violinist, and Audrey Snyder is a cellist. And they really helped to supplement The Who on this tune, adding some really nice touches to this great, great classic. So it was really great to hear that version. And then after that, it's back to Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend doing this great little nice intimate number from their last album, The Endless Wire, Tea in Theater. And it was a song that I think Pete wrote about his relationship with Roger at this point. It's just a really nice, friendly kind of a tune, and great to see them doing that one. I was kind of hoping to see this one, actually, so glad that they pulled it out. So now we're at a point in the show where the full orchestra comes back on stage and they launch into Quadrophenia, selections from that album, which of course is their great classic from the early 70s. They kick things off with The Real Me, which I was glad to see. I don't think they did it opening night. I was wondering why they didn't put that in there, but they finally added it. And they did I'm One, The Punk and the Godfather, 515, which is one of my all-time favorites. Great orchestration here. Although Pete, you could tell, was having some issues. There was something going on. And then we learned after the song that he had the wrong guitar, which is why he wasn't able to get the right sounds that he wanted. So Pete, I don't know, he started off the show a little bit shaky. He got his footing, and then he had a couple of other issues a little bit later. But overall, Pete was not as sharp as I thought he would be. But he also had a pretty good night too. You could tell he was having a lot of fun. After this, they do Drowned, The Rock, and then they close out Quadrophenia with a great, great live version of Love Reign Over Me. And, this is a song that has a really great scream in it. And we don't think about it too much because we think about Won't Get Fooled Again and that classic wail. But he didn't get to do it on this night because they had an acoustic version, and so we didn't get the scream, but we did get a scream in Love Ran Over Me. I mean, it'll send chills up your spine. Roger was dead on. He sounded amazing. Great, great way to end the Quadrophenia part of the show. And then the band stayed on stage. They didn't go away, as you typically see with encores. They stayed on stage, and they whipped out an explosive Baba O'Reilly, which is just a majestic song. I mean, they really, really rocked this one out. We got a lot of windmills from Pete, and then we get this great violin solo from Katie Jacoby, who is the lead violinist and concertmaster. And she actually played this in high school in a battle of the bands. There's Baba O'Reilly on the violin, and she won. And it was a dream for her to play with The Who. And she just added this really nice solo that replaced Roger's harmonica solo that he would do at this point. So overall, I really enjoyed this show. It was a great evening, and I went in with low expectations. You know, I got to be honest, I really lost interest in The Who after Entwhistle passed away. I was always into what he brought to the band, and when he left, I thought a certain part of their chemistry also went with them. And so I haven't really been keeping up with The Who a whole lot. This is the first time I ever saw them, so I went to this show just wanting to spend the evening with them, just to be in their presence and hear them do what they do. And I can understand if you're a really big Who fan who saw them back in the 70s, maybe the 60s, you're not going to want to see this maybe because you're just kind of like, I've seen the best. I get it. But if you want to go have a good evening out, enjoy yourself with The Who, this is a great tour for it. The orchestra adds great orchestrations to these songs that you wouldn't have expected, like with Eminence Front and Behind Blue Eyes really, really benefited from it. Certainly Tommy did. That's pretty much built for an orchestra. And, you know, it was just great to see Pete doing his windmills, having fun. Roger also having fun. You know, these guys are getting older. It's not really clear how long they're going to be going on, and I wouldn't be shocked if this was the last tour. And you know, Roger was talking about how, you know, he's 75 years old. His voice is not going to hold up too much longer, and he's not going to go out there if he can't sing. And so it's very possible that these could be the last days of seeing The Who live. So if you want to go check them out, do it, all right? Now, as for what's coming up next for The Who, look for a new album. That's going to be the follow-up to their 2006 Endless Wire album. And during this show, Pete mentioned that they may debut some brand new tunes when they come back to the States in the fall. And so I would expect this new album to be out probably sometime by the holidays. It's just my guess. And Pete himself has got another rock opera coming out. He has a book on the way in early November called The Age of Anxiety. And it's also going to have an opera and some kind of an art installation to go along with it. So be looking out for that. But otherwise, I really enjoyed the show. Let me know what you thought. Have you seen the show? Would you go see The Who? What do you think about them now in 2019? And how much longer are they going to go on? What do you think? Let me know. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button too. Be sure to check out the companion playlist, and I'll be back soon with another video. All right, take care.
You're wonderful. I'm lucky that I'm getting my life to sing these songs. The music of this man, my friend. God knows, how long is it now? Maybe 60 years. Pete Harvey! So much for coming. And thanks, Roger, so much for coming up with this courageous and audacious idea. And, you know, I wrote an email and I said the two qualities I admire most in the man is courage and audacity. Do you know what that means? It means he's a mad fucker. Thanks, Roger, for getting this together. It's such a great thing for me. I'm learning every day, and it's wonderful. And isn't he singing great? Voice is great. no song's better than Pete's songs for me. They challenge me in every way possible. I can sing all kinds of other stuff, and I love singing that, but most of all, this is where my heart lies, my soul lies, this is what it's about. So thank you so much for supporting us all these years.